I also will probably straighten some of these so that they're easier to add textures onto. So straighten that, and how am I going to fit this? So a lot of the part of texture work is trying to figure out where to fit stuff. If I move this here, bring this person here. No. So what is this? It is the, what was it? It is the bottom of this. Oh, okay, I don't really care about that much. So I can also, if I'm like here, I can just use, turn off the element. I can use the break tool. Where's break? Break. Here. And that just splits that off. All right, so if I want to, because I didn't really care about that piece. Cool. All right, I have some wasted space here. And usually I would spend a lot more time trying to make sure it's maximized. So I use, because otherwise those empty spaces just has nothing there. So it's a waste of texture space. But for now, let's just keep going. Oh, this is terrible. Let's just straighten that. There we go. So you want to keep everything as neat as possible and as straight as possible, right? I'm gonna probably tweak those. And the reason being is you may not be the person doing the texturing. And depending on the studio that you're working in, you might only be doing the unwrapping, or you might only be doing the modeling, or whatever it is. So if you have a very messy like UV and you give it to a texture and they're just like, what is this? Like, it's really hard to work with. So you just need to get in the good habit of making it as neat as possible for other people to work with. So once you're happy, let's say I'm happy with that, that's grand. I will need to then, there's multiple ways to texture. I showed you last week just using Photoshop and putting stuff into those areas. So last week I showed you, you make the texture first and then you move the polygons to where they are. We're going to do the opposite. So this week I already have the polygons set there and I'll put textures on where the polygons are. Does that make sense? Okay. And then Substance, which I asked everyone to download. That is basically the new way of doing stuff, but you kind of need to understand what Substance is doing behind the scenes. And you do need to understand wrapping still. Unfortunately, there's still no magical auto unwrap tool that does it well. Or, well, it perfectly. So it was tools, and once I'm happy with this, render the template. Let's make the resolution 2048. Render that template. So it gives me this render. It looks all jaggedy, but it's actually not. It's actually okay when I zoom in. Then I'll save that somewhere. Save that on the desktop to Asset Design. That was my last week's one. And then you save as type PNG. I would say it's the best. And then just save that. Yeah, let's close that. Optimize palette. Okay. So that's saved now, which means I can open it in Photoshop. Asset Design. Tomahawk UVW. Cool. So I have that here, and I can start adding textures onto it. There's a couple of problems. You see the way it says index? Index is a different mode. Like you want RGB because like Unity uses RGB color. So I just need to go image mode, change that to RGB. So now it's RGB color, so red, green, blue. The other thing is it's on the background here. So let's say the blade, if I want that to be metallic, let's say metal texture cartoon. Let's just use that one for crack. Oh no, it's gonna no. Let's use that. Cool. Copy. Cool. Copy image, and if I paste it. So if I start doing this, this will work fine. And I just cover this area. That works fine. The problem is that now I'm not really sure where my other stuff is, right? So now I'm blocking up other stuff and I don't really know where my blade is anymore. So what I would usually do is I'm gonna make a copy of this, or you can just unlock the background, either or, and put this on top instead. And does anyone know in Photoshop what the thing is to remove all the black areas? The blending mode? Multiply will only leave black areas, and then the lighter areas will be kind of overlaid. But if we go to screen, where's screen? Why am I? There we go. Screen means anything that's black will be completely see-through, and every other color information stays. So that allows me to have all the black areas be see-through, and I see like a wireframe overlay of all the green and white stuff. Okay. What I can then do is just lock that back again, so that I don't accidentally. Where's lock? Lock. Anyone see lock? Or just leave it. It's fine. And that way, when I rescale stuff and block it out, I still know. Oh, okay, this is still the handle area. That's still the handle area. And I can still see the whole wireframe over it. What that also allows me to do, because I can see the wireframe edges, you see sometimes people do, especially for, I didn't bring my tablet, but for hand-painted textures, you may see people do like edge effects. So because I know this is the edge here, I may like go off and paint. I may go off and paint on that area, if that makes sense. Don't know why it's not painted. Let's use whatever. So, why did none of my brushes work? Okay, cool. So if I paint just, this is much easier with a tablet, I would say. If I paint that, that will appear on the edge side of the blade. That's where you get like little edge and cracks and edges and stuff. Now this is for hand painted stuff. Again, there is an easier way to do. This is the kind of old school way where you would create the UV templates, and then you would add textures and either paint them or edit them or whatever on those textures. The modern way is the program called Substance, which I will cover probably next week. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to paint in 3D, and it allows you to add materials onto it, and then you just export it. It's much easier, but you do kind of need to understand how it works for us to go on to that. So let me just really crappily put on a bunch of crappy textures. What should the handle be? I think it was like polycarbonate or something, wasn't it? So I'll just try and do this really quickly. It won't be the best thing in the world, but sure, it'll work. Oh, these are all terrible. Leather. Yeah, why not? Come on. And when you see what the end result is, you'll kind of understand why the old school games look the way they do. Cool. Let's use the same leather but with a different. Let's just change the hue a little. Let's have, I don't know. Whatever. I forgot what that part is. And let's just reuse the metal for everything else, just to save time. So I hope you all remember from first year, like if I have this seam here, that means on my tomahawk blade it's going to show that like little cut line seam here. So does anyone remember how I get rid of that stuff? You don't remember? What tool can I use to hide that? Well, warp will. Let's do warp. Warp will allow me to like bend stuff and like stretch stuff, but the problem is, even if I do that, I still have that line. You see it? The little seam. So what I want to do is get rid of the seams, like all these cut lines and seams, especially wherever they cross the UV shell. I just don't want it to have a line like that. What would I use? Just fuck up. I would use the clone tool. So here, and the clone tool allows me to, if I hit Alt, select an area. Can you see that like it's copying that area? I'll do it on here so it's more obvious. You see that area? It's being copied. And that way, whenever I paint, it kind of like overlays over it. I try to, and that, even just that little bit, just really quick like that, just makes the seam disappear. All right, so you're ideally just trying to make sure it's not obvious where the seams are. Most players won't notice if it's a little bit cloned, but they will notice if that's like hard, sharp line. Our eyes are much better at seeing hard edges than soft, fuzzy edges or organic edges. All right, so this is a really bad UV unwrap, but I'm gonna save it. And oh, when you save it, remember to turn off that, because otherwise if you keep that on, it'll go onto your model. Let's save it like this and see what happens. So save as PNG, Hawk, albedo, but this is only the albedo. Go back to 3ds Max, material, tool. Let's use a different material because the first one is being used for our reference. Find that, asset design, and that's the albedo. Okay, and you need to show it, and I'll turn off the. Oops, sorry. Turn off the grid. So you see, because I forgot to turn off that layer with the overlays, they show up. So I don't want that. Other than that, though, everything else kind of works. And then I have these problems, these seams here. So where is that? That should be. This one is this one of the handles, the leather handle. This leather handle. Okay, so I probably have a problem here. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I got confused there. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so it's just the wireframe showing through. So just remember to PNG, and you can just replace it. And this is the old school way of doing it. You would edit it in Photoshop, replace the file, go back to 3ds Max, it updates, and you would kind of like swap between them. There was a tool called Quixel where you could see a 3D representation in the model. But like old school, if you couldn't afford Quixel, this is kind of how you would do it. I completely forgot rope for here. So let's go find rope. Where is rope? I actually don't know which piece. I think it's these pieces. So let's go find rope. Rope, texture. This one looks pretty good. It's definitely gonna have a watermark. Oh no, it doesn't. Haha. Sorry, Shutterstock. Let's do that. Switch that on here. I don't even need to remove it because it's not on the. No UV part is overlaying it. So let's save that, see what happens. Cool. And come on, buddy. Oh, we went on that one. But you can see how it works. And because I made sure it was straight, whenever I overlay the straight texture onto it, it comes in straight. And when the model is bent, it follows the bend like normal rope would. Right, so it works pretty well. Where are the other pieces? I don't know where the other pieces. I think that's probably one of them. I actually don't know where the other pieces are. This thing? Maybe that one's the one. Let's try. We'll find out. Huh? Which one in the corner? Oh yeah, I thought that one was one. I'm not sure about this one, but we'll find out soon. Let's just copy that one there. Yeah, it should be grand. Again, remove this. Oh no. Yeah, why not? Save the Photoshop file. Why not? And file, save as PNG. Cool. Cool. Come on. Yay! Yay! Alright. So let's say I'm happy with this. Okay. Let's say I'm like, I'm not. I would keep going, but let's say I'm happy. What I would do is when I'm finished, you see the way it says unwrap PVW here. I can do two things. I can either right click, convert to editable poly. What that will do is collapse everything in the modifier panel, but it just means I can never edit it again. So if I, right click, convert to editable poly. And now it can never edit it again, but those things are still there. Or I can just add another edit poly on top of it. But you got to be careful. If you just keep adding this, it means you can keep going down the list. But a lot of the times, editing something below will screw up the stuff above it. So let me try to edit this. You see the way I've done that? I went back to edit poly and now my unwrap is all screwed up. Okay, hopefully. And now it's okay. But it just shows like if you go back down to edit poly and start messing around with stuff, sometimes it screws up the modifiers above it. Okay. So I would always try to be safe and not mess with modifiers below unless you really have to. There are exceptions, of course, and over time you'll kind of know when you're allowed to. So let's say I finish this. I can then reassemble my tomahawk because they remember like the, why is this offset? Ugh. If your selection starts doing this weird thing, it's this. Just bring it back to square. Okay, cool. And because I just moved them up and down before, it's much easier to bring them back. I just move them up and down again until they come back. And because I have them unwrapped already, I can also, if I want to, like duplicate stuff if I want to, and it's completely fine. I want to rotate this, but you see the way they're rotating each individually? What I'll do is it's up here. So this is using each of their individual pivot points. If I click and hold, I can go to rotate around the main selection. So it just rotates around all of them. And I can add more of these if I want and go crazy. I should have made a feather because then I could have a few feathers. And because they're all using the same area on unwrap UVW, I don't need to keep re-unwrapping them. They already are unwrapped. Okay, and when you're designing whatever you're building, always think like that. If I have one metal pole and I know I'm going to have 55 metal poles, you don't need to model 55 metal poles and unwrap 55 metal poles. Model one, unwrap one, and later on just copy it 55. It's much easier. Just saves you a lot of hassle. And again, I can, like, if I want to, let's have a super. Yeah, can't even hold it, like. And you can see like every single one has the same texture, so it's grand. I should work with Skyrim, the publisher of Skyrim. Okay, let's do that. Okay, cool. All right, so we have this super dumb tomahawk. Grandio. So when I'm happy with this, I will then, remember, it's still just one object. Make sure that it's always one object. File, export selected, and export that as an FBX. So desktop, asset design, no animation, turn that off. Okay. So hopefully that should be there. And let's see if Sketchfab is not broken. Asset design. No, that's 2018. What's asset design? There we go. Tomahawk.fbx. Okay, cool. Let's go to Sketchfab. Hopefully it's fixed now. And then you, like, once you have an account, upload, and you can just like drag it in. Maybe SketchUp is broken still. Oh, cool. Continue, it'll upload and stuff, and then keep continuing. And there it is. Doesn't have textures though, because I need to import the texture separately. You can do something called embed media, but I don't like doing that. So if you are, it doesn't publish immediately. You have to actually click publish to publish it. So let me go 3D settings. And in 3D settings, we are always using PBR because Unity does that already. I can then go to materials and I will add texture. So base color here, I can go to texture, import textures, and I can import my albedo, my beautiful albedo. Where is it? Desktop. Cool. Cool. And importing it will, can you see it? Yeah, there we go. You can put it on there. Obviously, it doesn't look that nice because I don't have a metallic. So maybe let's just make a really crappy metallic real quick. So again, let me turn that on. And then remember how to make what areas are metallic and what areas are not. White is metallic, yeah. So let's do that. I'll just do I'll do a very basic white and black. I won't even do in between colors. So anything here, let's make that white. I'm just making it a new layer, so I can still have all my old textures below. All of these are white. And the opposite will be black. Put that off. Looks like a cow. So tomahawk, and this will be metal. Go here, add metalness. I need to upload it again. And did it work? What's on there? Black means non-metal, white means raw metal. Yeah. You working? Oh, it is. It's just not very obvious. Let's make the smoothness. There we go. So this roughness, glossiness, you can also do a roughness, glossiness map, which tells it like how rough to be and how soft to be. This is slightly different from Unity. So remember, in Unity, it was based on how transparent it is. The more transparent, the less smooth it is. This one uses a map, and it's a grayscale. You can see like the closer to white, the smoother it is. The closer to black, the rougher it is. But when I show you Substance later on, I'll show you it just auto generates all these maps. There's a bunch of other maps here. You all know what a normal map is, right? You remember that? Okay. And again, we will use Substance because that's basically what we use nowadays, and it's much easier. You don't need to go to Photoshop and make stuff in there. You just use Substance, okay? But just for now, you can also change the lighting. So here are the different, you can do studio. That's studio lighting. And then you can see the metallic much better. Can you see it? It would be great if I could normal map this. And there's a bunch of presets. You can also import your own. And you can also go to post-processing, which is where people have fun. So you can turn on reflections. You can turn on ambient occlusion. I don't know if you can see that. Let me make it super obvious. Ambient occlusion basically just makes areas where there are contact areas. So if you look at anything, your mouse or whatever, if you put it there, you see around it, there's a little shadow all the way around. There's of course a shadow where the light's falling, and that's the cast shadow. But there's on the contact area, there's a little shadow all the way around it, and that's called ambient occlusion. You can do ambient occlusion through post-processing, which I'm doing here, and that calculates where to add ambient occlusion. You can also do something called an ambient occlusion map, and again, that will be later. But the ambient occlusion map will tell whatever 3D program you are, put little shadows in these areas, okay? And we'll generate those in Substance. You can do grain, which makes it all blurry. I don't know if you can see that. You can do depth of field, you can do sharpness. So you can blur sharpness to make it sharper. That's way too much, but you can if you want. And chromatic aberrations. Don't give me this, by the way. If you submit something like this, that's a fail. It looks terrible. Vignette. Bloom. To make, so what, let me just turn off the rest so you can see what bloom does. So a little bit of bloom works quite well. So bloom basically makes shiny areas shine more. So now you can really notice the metallic area. And if I had a normal map on it, this would look really nice, because then you would really show off all the little crevices of the normal map. Actually, let's make a normal map really quickly. So on the same, you downloaded Substance Designer and Substance Painter, right? Okay. You also get this thing called Bitmap to Material. We don't really need it most of the time, but I can use it for this one. I'll just show you quickly. You just add a bitmap to, let's put it onto here. Load into main input. And then we can go to normal map, which is relief. And basically anywhere that's darker, you see the way it's kind of working? It's generating a normal map. By anywhere that's darker, pushing it down, anywhere that's lighter, pushing it up. And you tweak it using these frequencies here. And then the intensity. That's super intense. Probably don't want that much. Just have it a bit. Cool. So this is another way to make a normal map. Then when I finish, let's export. Export just the normal map. How can I just, let's export everything. Why not? Normal. There we go. And browse. Let's export it into the same folder. So you should get a free license of this one as well. Select folder, export. Where is it? Oh, when is the target? Damn it. Target should work. Let's go back to materials. Go to the normal map, turn on normal map, and let's add the texture. Hopefully that works. Does it take target? Yes, it does. Can you see that? So now this got a normal map, that's way too much. So it's not, it's okay. All right, like I don't like this old method because it looks very old school, doesn't it? It looks like a really old school game because that's literally how they did it back in the past. And we'll look over how to make realistic useful stuff. I'll show you that next week for Substance. But you do kind of need to know where you're coming from for this. Coolio. And then if you're happy, you publish. I'm not publishing this. But you can save settings and then exit. Cool. Any questions so far? Okay, let's take like 5-10 minutes. You do your stuff. I'll come around and help you if you want, and then I'll give you the assignment for your first assignment. Okay, that's your first graded assignment. No questions, EG?